I'm Sarah Brown.
I'm Katie Chung.
And welcome back to Civil Rights News. So, since 1882, about 4,743 lynchings have been reported right here in America.
Now, these murders have mostly occurred in the southern states as a way for whites to relieve their frustration on the matter.
Southern blacks, who are former slaves, are blamed by the whites for their financial issues. Lynchings also occurred based on various rape accusations towards the African American minority.
Black war veterans were lynched in 1946, causing President Harry S. Truman to take action. He ended segregation in federal civil service and ordered equality of treatment and opportunity in the armed forces in 1948.
Now, Katie, these people who were being lynched, was it strictly just African Americans?
No, in fact, 27.3% of the white population were lynched for supporting the civil rights movement. However, African Americans were lynched for redonkulous reasons. For example, in 1955, a Mississippi mob lynched a 14-year-old African American boy named Emmett Till for staring suggestively at a woman.
This extreme segregation towards blacks obviously greatly impacted them as a minority. Many blacks reacted to the violence and segregation by forming associations and committees in support of the civil rights movement.
Now, Sarah, do you mind extrapolating on some of these organizations?
Of course, Katie, I would love to extrapolate. One organization that still exists today is the NAACP, or the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and the SNCC, or SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Both of these organizations fought against violence and segregation by using a peaceful approach.
Now remind me, Sarah, what did the NAACP do specifically?
All right, so the NAACP helped pass many laws that were very beneficial to the African Americans in ending segregation, especially in public schools. Their main purpose was to create a loud and clear voice for the black community in order to put a stop to the violence and eliminate racial prejudice.
The first president of the NAACP was a white American historian by the name of W.E.B. Du Bois. He grew up in a small, integrated community, which caused him to be a Pan-Africanist as he grew up. Today, the president of this organization is a very successful American lawyer by the name of Cornell William Brooke.
In April 1960, the SNCC, or SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, was developed after the Greensboro 4 incident.
Now, can you expand a little more on that specific incident?
Certainly. The Greensboro 4 incident occurred on February 1st, 1960, when 4 college students in Greensboro, North Carolina, demanded service at a white-only lunch counter. Within a week, this sit-in grew up to 1,000 participants, which led to wait-ins, lie-ins, and pray-ins across the South for equal rights and desegregated public utilities.
Now, Sarah, you're basically telling me that SNCC was created in order for students to advocate and impact the civil rights movement now?
Yes, the student advocates often marched with other organizations and helped those in need. SNCC advocates were not as patient as the SCLC or the NAACP, however. We're now going to show you some photographs that are going to resemble this time period, as well as the people that marched with these organizations.
On May 4th, 1961, the first Freedom Ride took place. 2 public buses held 7 blacks and 6 whites. Yes, 13 people.
Wow.
Headed to the Deep South from Washington, D.C., with the goal of testing the Supreme Court's ruling in Boynton versus Virginia in 1960. This act declared segregation in interstate bus and rail stations unconstitutional.
Now, in the summer of 1964, this was known as the Freedom Summer, where thousands of student volunteers and civil rights organizations from around the country traveled to Mississippi in order to help the local voting registration efforts. Some of these organizations being SNCC, the NAACP, and the SCLC.
Blacks in the Deep South faced incredible violence. From legal hardships to lynchings to the KKK, they were in dire need of saving.
Now, here's some very important people who played a key role in the civil rights movement.
Speaking of hardships the blacks faced, we cannot forget about the Little Rock integration.
Now, Katie, can you just remind me what this integration was about again?
Yes, I can remind you. Let's see here. The Little Rock integration was when 9 black students, Elizabeth Eckford, Carlotta Walls, Ernest Green, Minnie Jean Brown, Gloria Ray, Terrence Roberts, Thelma Mothershed, Melba Beals, Jefferson Thomas, enrolled in a Little Rock Central School. Upon getting to the school, the black students faced the Arkansas National Guard sent by the governor Orville Faubus. Yes, the National Guard was preventing them from going to class.
Wow.
These black students also faced white students accusing them of outrageous things. President Dwight D. Eisenhower had to order troops to escort the 9 blacks to class. This integration was crucial because it paved the way for desegregated public schools and proved the act that was passed.
Oh yes, the 9 students were led by Daisy Bates, the NAACP leader and the only woman pilot in the Arkansas City Air Patrol during World War II.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
And now we will be showing you some photographs of the Little Rock integration and the 9 black students. Rights Act of 1964 ended segregation in public spaces and forbid employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This act was a pivotal turning point of the civil rights movement. This act also created the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, whose mission was and still is to eliminate any employment segregation and discrimination.
The EEO writes, freedom from discrimination on the basis of all classes are guaranteed by federal and state fair employment laws and are enforced by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC, and its state of counterparts.
Now, Sarah, is there anything else that we might have missed?
Yes. Lastly, the Affirmative Action Plans, or the AAPs, define an employer standard for proactively recruiting, hiring, and promoting women, minorities, and disabled individuals, as well as veterans. Affirmative action is deemed a moral and social obligation to amend historical wrongs and eliminate the present effects of past discrimination.
Well, I guess that's all, folks. Thanks for joining us. I'm Katie Chung.
And I'm Sarah Brown. Have a great night.
Adios.